Hey guys, it's SomberShadow001 back at it again with the video games. I know I look wicked sweaty. It is wicked hot today where I am. Anyway, there's some new Forsaken news. Really big deal. Some new, bunch of new stuff. You can go thank the guys at Game Informer. They're covering it this whole month. So I just want to let you know I can't use any of their footage, unfortunately, because, I'll get copyright strike and you don't want that. I don't want to take credit for, what they took. But anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go over kind of what they went over in the August 2008 cover. I thought it was very interesting what they had to say, at least with Forsaken. And also, I don't want to spoil no story stuff. I'm not spoiling any story stuff. I'm just going over new stuff that they're adding, just in general, new mechanics. I have a bunch of notes right here, and we'll just start. So the first thing, order of business, is the Scorn, the new enemies that we have. So they released the enemy types, and we have the names of all of them. So right now we have the mongrels, which are more or less these big guys with electricity powers. They just shoot electricity at you. It's literally all they really have. Other than that, we have the Screams, which is a really, really odd name. I don't know why it's called that, but hey, what are you gonna do? And more or less what they do is they walk on all fours and they self-detonate. Kind of think of the, I guess you could think of the Cursed Thrall from, pretty much all the like D1 and D2. Those really annoying Thrall that run at you and then explode. That's pretty much what the Screams are. Then you have the Raiders, which more or less they throw void saw blades at you, which sounds pretty cool, and they teleport around, kind of like the Captains. It's kind of like a short blink, so you don't really know what's, or at least that's what it sounds like they're saying it's going to be. So I guess we'll see when Forsaken comes out September 4th. Our next one is the Lurkers, and more or less they just have shields, just basically phalanx from the Cabal. That's really all you got for that. Then you got the Ravagers, which more or less charge at you, and they do a more or less a solar slam attack. It's just kind of thrown in. They're just like, yeah, they run at you, solar slam, you're done. And then you have the Chieftains, which they summon elemental totems that you need to destroy, and each of them have their own special effect. So solar, more or less, are just turrets. Your Void, more or less, creates shields for all of the Scorn in the area, and then the Arc is more or less a vacuum that sucks you in and closer to the enemy, which is not good if you don't have like something that's close range. Anyway, now we're gonna get on to the topic of new supers. We got whole new supers, so we're gonna start off with the Titans. And so right now, this is for the Sentinel. It's called Code of the Commander. The super's called Banner Shield, and more or less it's basically Reinhardt from Overwatch, where your guard creates a giant wall of white light. Allies can shoot through it. Enemies, you block all enemy fire pretty much without any taking any damage. Other perks to be aware of this of the Code of the Commander. You also have that melee causes an explosion. Don't know if it's charge melee, normal melee. I'm betting it's gonna be charge melee. Apparently, so Void ability damage also attaches detonators to enemies. Of course, after a short time they'll explode. If the explosion hits another enemy but doesn't kill them, then that spawns a detonator on them. It's more or less a giant chain effect, kind of like the Seeking Void rockets from the new revamped Graviton Lance. Next is the Sunbreaker Titan with the Code of the Devastator. Its super is called Siege Hammer. More or less, you just create this giant hammer. And when you slam down with a heavy attack, it creates a fire tornado. It's basically the Iron Axe from Rise of Iron in D1. With this, melee more or less is changed. It's a throwable hammer, which you can retrieving procs from health regen, and creates and refreshes your melee energy, as well as that's kind of really it. That's all. I don't know where I was going, but as well as solar ability kills give you a damage boost that stacks up to 3 times. We don't know how much of a damage boost it is. It could be a big one, it could be a small one. I guess we'll find out when Forsaken comes out. Next is the Striker Titan with Code of the Missile. I mean, it's kind of self-explanatory by the name. The super is Thunder Crash. I mean, you more or less turn into Superman. You fly up into the air, you control where you go for a short time, you come down, you slam, you kill everyone in your wake. That's pretty much it. That's the whole thing. Your melee is more or less Death from Above from D1, which was kind of what the Superman was back in the day. As well, sliding now reloads your weapons and increases weapon damage for a short duration. We don't know how short, but it seems kind of cool. I kind of hope to play. I just finished leveling up my Titan. I think it'll be interesting to see. Now we're on to Warlocks. For the Void Walker, we have the Attunement of Fission. The super is Nova Warp, and you more or less, it's a short teleport, like a dash. You're pretty much an anime character. You just dash around like freaking Goku. Like, it's literally instant transmission. I don't really know what else to say. Your attack is more or less an eruption of void light. You kind of like explode without damaging yourself. It's a pretty interesting move, I think. So the melee, this is the only melee that has a name. It's called the Atomic Breach, and we don't really know how it works. It says it creates a void explosion at range. I mean, we don't really know what that means. So we don't know if it works like a grenade, if you melee them and then they run away, or if you melee the air and it somehow shoots like a tendril that does that. I don't really know how that works. And then they also said that grenades create a short-range supernova. Also don't really know what that means. I guess we'll figure that out eventually. Anyway, we're going to go to the Stormcaller Warlock, which is the Attunement of Control. Its super is called Chaos Reach, and it's basically Final Shine from Dragon Ball GT. Or the Kamehameha that freaking Goku has. You more or less just shoot a laser of arc energy that destroys everything in its wake. That's it. The really cool factor about this is that it can be canceled to save super energy, which I thought was interesting. It's the only super that can be canceled. I believe this is the first super that can ever be canceled, which is cool. I like that. So more or less, the melee is a arc ball that is tossed that explodes and more or less creates a straight lightning bolt that I believe chains to enemies. I don't know exactly if it does, but I'm pretty sure it does from the description. Also, arc ability kills create something, or can create something called ionic traces, which is more or less, you can think of it like orbs of light, just without recharging your super. It recharges ability energy for your allies. Next, we're going to Dawn Blade, and this is the Attunement of Grace. This is pretty much the whole support class. Its super is Well of Radiance. It more or less creates a giant rift. You like kind of stick your sword in the ground. It creates a giant rift of light that both heals and empowers at a rapid rate. So, that's a tongue twister. So, like, you heal wicked fast, and empowering more or less, if you don't know, means you get a massive damage boost. Considering the super, it's gonna be a really, really, really big damage boost. This is probably gonna be an amazing combo with Ward of Dawn. If they ever buff Ward of Dawn for the Sentinel, that'd be nice. No one really uses it anyway because it's kind of doo-doo right now. Hopefully they will. So what we have here is melee can hurt enemies or empower allies, which is interesting. It's an interesting idea. I like that. A grenade can be like held down. The grenade button can be held down, and more or less you can turn it into a blessing, which you can throw at your allies, and it creates overshield orbs. More or less, it creates orbs on the ground. You pick them up, it gives you overshield, so it like extra health, which is interesting. So this is the complete support class, which I thought was awesome. Now we're going on to Hunters, and we're going to start, which is my favorite class, and we're going to start with Night Stalker, which probably has the best path name I've ever heard in my entire life. Actually, all of the at least two of the Hunter subclasses have probably the greatest branch names I've ever heard. So with the Night Stalker, it's Way of the Wraith, which sounds awesome already. Your super is Spectral Blades. It's more or less Blade Dance from D1. If you don't know, that was the Arc subclass where you created an Arc Blade. But this time you create two blades made out of void energy. You turn invisible, and you more or less just run around. You're super agile, wicked hard to kill, and you just literally just start just cutting people up. I believe you could also see through walls which will be interesting to figure out, which will actually go into the perk that you can get. So with here, it has the smoke bomb hits harder and slows targets, and precision kills now grant invisibility and true sight. True sight is basically wall hacks. So maybe we'll see how that works. I believe it's probably going to be like a brief, like very brief, like a flash, kind of like a pulse, which I think will be interesting. So next we're going on to the Gunslinger Hunter with the Way of 1,000 Cuts, which sounds like an awesome kung fu movie or like a move, like an anime move or something. That sounds really cool. Unless your super is called Bladed Barrage, you just throw literally like a fuck ton of explosive knives. That's it. That's literally the whole super, like in a circle. Some extra perks are, burning enemies, refresh your dodge, and killing burned enemies refreshes your throwing knife, which seems pretty interesting. So it's all about restoring your kind of your own abilities, and which is good because hunters don't really have a lot going for them right now. I feel like they're kind of like the weakest class right now, which stinks because I love hunters so much. That's my main character all the time. So I guess we'll see how that works out. Next is the Arc Strider, which is the Way of the Current, and the super is Whirlwind Guard, which more or less affects the normal Arc Staff, kind of like how the Sentinel has the giant Void Wall. It's still like the normal super, it's just kind of reworked. With this, you finally gain a guard with Arc Staff. While you're guarding, you reflect projectiles, and after the guard is done, it triples your staff damage, which is pretty good. I like that. And for extra perks, you have, sliding before melee, more or less creates a staff uppercut, and arc abilities now electrify enemies and disorient if you repeatedly hit them, which I like. So it kind of blinds them and electrifies them so they can't really move. So that's it for all the 9 supers. Now we're going to go to the destination, the Tangled Shore, which is in the Reef. It's more or less Mad Max. What else can I say? The new vendor is called the Spider, who's a fallen ally. He has enforcers that more or less will help you on certain adventures, which is what they say. As well, a bunch of new public events. We don't really know what the new public events are, what they entail. We just know that there are. We also are going to be able to hunt barons, which are the bosses, and they're all unique in the Tangled Shore. They're all kind of like their own Wild West type character, which I thought was interesting. Next is the ammo changes. So they did mention, hey, you can have shotguns in all 3 categories. You could have snipers in all 3 categories. So more or less what they said was the white, which is your kinetic, pretty much that's going to apply to auto rifles, pulse rifles, hand cannons, scout rifles, bows, SMGs, and sidearms. Your green, or your energy, is going to go with breach grenade launchers, fusion rifles, shotguns, snipers, and trace rifles. Of course, there are going to be some exceptions, like specific exotics, like the Legend of Accuracy for shotgun is only going to be in heavy. Some snipers are only going to be in heavy, which makes sense. So I guess we'll see how that works. Next is the Dreaming City, which is another destination. This is where the raid takes place. This is an actual destination that you can go to without partaking in a raid. It might be procedurally generated, maybe. They said it changes. It's on like a 3-week refresh cycle where it kind of just, changes a little bit each time you go. There's going to be a shitload of activities to do. It's going to be really awesome, which I like. And they also said it's about the size of Nessus, which is one of the bigger maps out there. So that would be pretty good. I kind of want that. Next, we're going on to my favorite part, which is the exotics. All the exotic weapons that we know so far. I believe we only know 4 exotic weapons. Just 4, I believe. I think it's 5 now, because they just revealed a new weapon. We only know the name of 4 of them. So we're just going to start off right here with the Trinity Ghoul, which is the new weapon type, the bow. It's an exotic bow. The arrows, more or less, fragment into 3 projectiles, and precision kills chain lightning to enemies. Sounds really awesome, and it looks amazing. I'll throw the picture up there. It looks awesome. It's really, really cool, and I've seen it in action. It's awesome. I can't use gameplay for it since, you know, I don't have early access, and I don't want to steal footage from other people because that's wrong. Don't do that. Our next is a returning exotic, the Ace of Spades, which is a hand cannon. Pretty much the normal thing, as far as we know. We haven't heard anything new about it, so I'm pretty sure it's going to have the Maverick perk, where I believe if you miss a shot, reloads the magazine, or repeated headshots do that. It also has Firefly, which, you know, precision kills, you know, make the enemy explode in an elemental fury. So I guess we'll see how that works out. Next is the Twin Rabbit, which is an exotic rocket launcher. It shoots 2 rockets, hence the name Twin Rabbit. One rocket is void, which suppresses enemies, meaning they can't use abilities. They can't, or at least as a guardian, you can't use your light, you can't use your super, you can't double jump, you can't glide, you can't do anything. All you can do is shoot. And the other rocket is a solar rocket that burns and does damage over time, which I think is a cool combo. I mean, the rocket's just going to insta-kill anyway, so I don't really know how that's going to work. So, anyway, it's cool. Next we have, this is the unnamed one, and it is a exotic sword that creates void slashes that are projectiles. I don't really know how to explain it. I'll throw the video clip up there. It's very weird. I can't really explain it, but it's definitely really cool. It's a very ornate looking sword, so it'll be very very interesting. Next, this was revealed by Game Informer, and it sounds so good. Name sounds awesome. Just the way it is sounds great. I'll throw the picture up. It's called the Cerberus +1. Cerberus as in the 3-headed dog, +1 because you'll figure out. It's an exotic auto rifle, so normal like assault rifle, except it has 4 barrels. So it has 3 barrels attached to it, literally zip tied to your entire gun. And apparently they shoot in 4 different directions. At least that's what I'm hearing. We don't really know much else about this, but the gun looks awesome and I really want it. Next, we're just gonna go for just some general info. Daily heroic missions are back. You can now choose strikes that specific strikes. I'm just gonna rapid fire through these. We now have the new collections tab, which more or less tracks weapons and armor and tells you how to get them. So like stuff that you're missing, it'll tell you, hey, get it from this specific event. So say I don't have Legend of Acreus. That's the only exotic I don't have, or in terms of weapons, that's the only exotic I don't have. So more or less, it'll tell me, hey, do the raid, then do arms dealer, and you'll get it, and without having to go all the way, without having to go to the vault or to the tower to check, or go to like a vendor who does the quest, which I like. We're also going to have increased vault space, which is what we desperately need right now, because vault space is just filling up because people love to collect weapons. We're also going to have less emphasis on milestones, so instead of the checklist, it's going to be more based on what you want to do, more on natural progression rather than, hey, do the raid, do the nightfall, do 3 heroic strikes, do call to arms for Crucible, do clan XP, do the flashpoint. Instead, it's just going to be like, do what you want to do and make it a little bit more natural, which I like. Next, mods have been completely changed. They no longer raise your power level. Okay, so that means we're not going to have the legendary damage mods or the legendary mods in general that just end up, just raising you faster, which is unfortunate, but hey, they're trying to slow progression. I get it. It makes sense. Random rolls are back, which is great. We want random rolls. That's all we want is random rolls. So that's going to be really good for weapons, of course, because there's always a sameness to the weapons since there's no random rolls. Unfortunately, year 1 weapons will not be granted this. It's only going to be year 2 weapons, which is unfortunate. And last but not least, we have new Crucible maps, as well as a new Crucible mode called Breakthrough, which is going to be in the comp list. It's more or less just moving the payload from Overwatch or Paladins. That's pretty much it. So the attacking team has to hack it, and then they'll move it to a specific spot, while the defending team has to stop them. That's pretty much it. So impressions overall, this sounds really awesome. I think Bungie's really doing something good. They're trying to make the game better, and I appreciate it. And honestly, I think it's a really good idea. I really think it's going to propel the game to where it needs to be. Otherwise, I know it's been a long video. It's like 20 minutes or something like that. So anyway, I'm going to end it here, guys. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Enjoy the video. Remember, apagando las luces.